when we take care of ourselves, that's when that change ripples out. So as much as I might want somebody to do something different, or I might want to change the world, I feel like this is all very, very meta in that the only way that I can really change the world is to help people come home to themselves so that they can then do their work in the world that they need to do.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Oracle on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Leah Dunlap, and today I'm really excited because my guest today is Dana Highfill. Dana Highfill is the visionary founder of Float North, a state-of-the-art float and massage therapy center in the Northeast Portland. Her journey to creating this sanctuary began with her own struggles to recover from burnout and rediscover balance in a demanding world, which I'm sure we can all appreciate today. Dana's mission is deeply personal. She's dedicated her life to helping others heal their nervous system, release stress, and reconnect with their innate sense of well-being. She's got a phenomenal women's founders story that I'm excited for her to share. Dana, welcome so much. I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to let everybody know what you're up to. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey from like the concept of leaving the corporate world to traveling over to the side of the fence on the women founder entrepreneur journey and, what you're up to today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me, Leah. It's super fun to talk about this stuff. I was an industrial designer. I was doing exhibit design in Vancouver, Washington. I was burnt out. I was unhappy. I took a trip to Ecuador in 2006 that changed my life. And when I came back to the States, I chose not to go back into corporate. And I was just so unhappy there. I started to work on myself to heal from the burnout and the nervous system dysregulation that had been normal to me. I didn't even know that I had been depressed because it was so normal to me. I started meditating. I started getting acupuncture, taking Chinese herbs, getting massage, also called body work. And in 2011, I started floating. During my first float, I had a vision of Float North. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know that that's what I was seeing. And it wasn't until 7 years later that I finally opened it. I really resisted, but I kept coming back. It felt like a calling. As much as I'm not a religious person, I definitely have a sense of spirituality, and I felt pulled to it, even though it's been challenging, and I knew it would be. But to offer this absolutely incredible modality to help more people and to do it from a healthcare provider perspective after being in. Yeah. So that's a big difference between other float centers and us, is that we have a very much a practitioner mindset in approaching clients.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I know we talked a little bit before we got started today. And one of the things I think is really valuable, of course, as many of you know, this whole show is about how do we help encourage, inspire, and share the messages and the insights that the Oracle has, but also the journeys of other women founders, because I think it's so important that we do share our journeys. And like you said, we all have that moment where we're changing direction, right? What was it that was, I know you said you went to Ecuador, which is amazing. But I'm guessing there was probably like a nudge before Ecuador that like something needed to change. What was that like for you to kind of answer that call, like you said?
Yeah, I think it's been there my whole life, but everything in our culture really pulls us away from that. We're taught to sit still in school and listen to the teacher. Don't listen to your body. All of that stuff I had to unlearn. And even in high school, I used to skip classes to go to yoga with the 45-year-old women in my town. So something had been pulling me all along. I think I'm truly a seeker. I've studied meditation for 15 years with a Tibetan Qigong master. I've done so much work in those areas, and I love sharing it with other people, especially because I have fought within myself with that pull towards, hustling and the burnout culture, the putting other people's needs before our own, taking care of other people and not taking care of yourself. And just what all of that leads to is us being dysregulated and depressed and anxious, not sleeping well. Eventually it leads to physical pain and illness. And
right. And you said yourself, like part of what you've created there is to kind of look at it from that practitioner standpoint of like, what does it take to have this whole being, right? Like supported and like you said, regulated. You tapped on something that kind of like got O's little radar going, which is this idea, this concept of hustling and pushing that the external world, like, frankly, I'm going to say lies to us about. Says like,
Yeah.
that's the way to be successful. And I think that a lot of women, when they came over into, entrepreneurship and even as founders, from the experience that I have with them, there's a sense of like following the guys, right? Like this is the way it's done. And part of that was definitely, I think, this idea that you hustle and you push yourself. And of course, most women, I think, push themselves harder than anyone else would push them anyway. So it's kind of like we kind of created this monster of what the idea of being a successful business owner really looks like. How did you go about kind of breaking away from that for yourself? Or have you? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
revolutionary to take care of ourselves. And I am someone who thinks outside the box all the time. And to take care of ourselves, to rest, to recharge and recover, it can feel like swimming upstream at first, even though you
Yeah.
literally are relaxing or doing less, but it feels so foreign and uncomfortable at first. And I'm a person who really seeks out those vulnerable edges and where is that discomfort. I love personal growth. I love learning more about myself so that I can be a better person, maybe to a fault. I need to dial it back sometimes. And
I don't
I do
know.
encourage.
Is that possible, Dana? Is there a fault in that? I don't think so.
Oh,
Let's hear more. Yeah.
I think that there can be if you're always striving and working to be better. Like sometimes we have to just accept who we are. It's okay to be a little bit of a flawed human. You don't have to be perfect. That's something that I have struggled with is certainly perfection.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think that's true. I think you're right. I think perfection is kind of it can be a monkey on your back, right? The
yeah.
idea of perfection for sure. I love that you're saying like there is that a thin line maybe between being always aware and listening for those guidances to move forward, to make changes without, again, kind of beating yourself up, which is what
Yeah,
I'm hearing.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So with that in mind, as you've done this work for many years now, what were we saying? Like how many years altogether have you had Flirt North?
Well, Float North has been open 6.5 years. I have
Okay.
been a massage therapist since 2008. So 16 years, something like that.
16 years.
Yeah.
Doing this work for 16 years.
Yeah.
And I think there's ground markers, right, that we go through as business owners. Like I would say like the first year, you're just throwing stuff. Like, come on, let's all be honest. Like we're just doing everything we can to get through the first year. But after the first year, I think between 1 and 5 is when you kind of start to you identify like what you're doing, why you're doing it, why it matters. And then after that, it's like building a legacy of something. So I'm curious for you, like, what is the vision you have of where you want to take Float North? I would even challenge you to go even higher than that and say, what does Float North mean to the world? Like, what is that vision of what it means to the world? What is your thought there?
Yeah. My wife always says that it sounds really corny, but I think that changing the world one person at a time is really we can only change ourselves. And so I do try to practice what I preach. I not just try, but actually practice what I preach. When we take care of ourselves, that's when that change ripples out. And so as much as I might want somebody to do something different, or I might want to change the world, I feel like this is all very, very meta in that the only way that I can really change the world is to help people come home to themselves so that they can then do their work in the world that they need to do. So it's very high level. I love big picture
Super
stuff.
meta. Yes, we have big meta. Well, and I think I totally agree, of course, because I think that's a big part of what I do and why I do it is to help people understand. Like, and literally today, I was just saying to someone, like, this is it. It all the real struggle is always inside of us. It's not outside of us. And so, yes, I agree that we need to do this. And so much of that is, I like to call it. I moved past this idea, and I don't know how you feel about this. Like, I think self-care almost became like this is my thing, and you can tell me what you think, honestly. But I always say like there's the new aloe vera in town. Like there's a new thing that we've decided is the cure-all. And so everybody logs on to it as like the thing to market without like understanding the depth perhaps of what that means or how it's actually used. And I think self-care got there mostly, I think, of course, because of the pandemic and things like that we were going through. where people didn't know, had not had any constant and consistent intentional care of themselves. So I think that the risk of that sometimes is it feels very veneer. Like it feels very like just like a splash across the page. Like, oh, I self-care, like, whatever. But there's not really a depth of understanding like what that takes. And I love for people to understand a little bit more about what the difference is when you're doing a float. Like what do they have access to? Maybe people here don't even know what floating is, which where have you been? But if you don't, because to me, it's like, I think it's about self-sustaining activities. When we take it that deeper level, it's not just about putting a Band-Aid over it, which I think sometimes that phrase can feel like. So I know that you do work there that is so profound for people. I'd just like to hear you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like.
Oh my gosh, I can go in so many different directions with it. I'm going to try to hit like the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of it.
Perfect.
Physically, this is the thing I talk about first most often, just because people can relate and it's not super woo. And, people are like, okay, this is something tangible. It's hydrates your cells. And when your cells are hydrated, they function better. It clears out the waste material in your cells and it actually helps repair the DNA. So the DNA has little strands on it. There are caps that are kind of like the caps on your shoelaces that keep the shoelaces from fraying.
Okay.
And these caps keep our DNA healthy and able to replicate well. And when those caps, they're called telomeres, they start to deteriorate, then we get sick, we get old, we don't feel good, we are tired. And floating is one of the few things that helps lengthen the telomeres on the DNA. It's absolutely incredible. This is not to mention the physical pain relief of soaking in liquid magnesium. There's 1,000 pounds of liquid magnesium in a pool, and it's so dense. It's denser than the Dead Sea. So you float like a cork. It doesn't matter how dense you are.
Nicely said. Yes.
Yes, it's great for your skin. It's great for your hair. It's great, from the outside in all the way through physically. And then can you imagine getting that downtime of not having your phone ping or something ding and something pulling your attention away? Discomfort, we reduce as much input as possible. It's also called sensory deprivation, which I think is a misnomer. You're not depriving yourself of anything. It's sensory reduction. And when you reduce the input to the senses, which is great for anyone really, but highly sensitive people, autism, all kinds of anxiety, depression, those kinds of things, when we really need to have less input, it's incredibly helpful on that mental and emotional level. There have been so many studies done. There's flotation, clinicalflotation.org, and you can see all kinds of peer-reviewed scientific studies, which are fantastic, that talk about areas of the brain that it lights up and the things that it helps with physically, proprioception, interoception, all of these things. I can just go on and on. And then spiritually, when we have the time to ourselves, is not only that, oh, I love this woo-woo thing. It's kind of like soaking in a liquid crystal. So it can really be powerful.
I love that. Wait, we gotta pause and just highlight that. Everybody needs to listen to this. It's like soaking in a liquid crystal.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think it does get more woo than that. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So tell me, like, what did some people say? Like, what are the reflections spiritually about like that experience for them?
Yeah. So every float is different. I've been floating almost weekly since 2011. And it's a journey. It's a practice, just like a yoga practice or any kind of practice, a meditation practice, a reading habit, any of these things. It can sometimes be absolutely mind-blowingly amazing. I have had people come into the lobby in tears of joy because they have never been pain-free. I've had people with back pain that it's chronic and it's the only place that they can get relief after surgeries and all kinds of things that have caused them to not improve. People have, so this is a very small portion of people, but there are people who do have visuals. I had a vision in my first float. It felt very, very real. It wasn't like a dream. Everything was very tangible. And I remember it to this day. So that's a common thing. Sometimes people have auditory where they'll hear things or see things. That's not very common. That's talked about a lot. I guess I'm so entrenched in the float community that to me, I'm like,
Hard, not. Yeah.
Not that big of a deal, but,
yeah.
Yeah, the anxiety and depression relief, sleeping better is the number one thing that people get from their first float. That night they sleep really well. Clarity. Once you've really gotten to a place where physically you're doing better, and I especially like to combine it with massage therapy. I'm really proud of the massage therapists that I have curated to help people um, really, they're true healers. And when you
Yeah.
combine a float with a massage, it helps integrate the body work. And then that whole session lasts longer. Everything will kind of take off even further. I'm going on a tangent here. The thing about floating is it's very much like a small 1 degree change. So it doesn't ever, people sometimes come in and they're nervous about it. They're worried that they're going to, be spending time with their thoughts, and their thoughts aren't very pleasant. And, oh, I won't be able to enjoy myself. It'll just
Quiet
be anxiety
down. Yeah.
producing. And that rarely happens. If that does happen, sometimes it's the second float, but it really is just a practice of letting those things calm down. The brain will automatically let go of those things over time.
Nice. Well, I think that's an important piece, like you said, with the spiritual aspect and also the visuals and the visualization. I think that's common in general. Like people think that sometimes I even said like you can meditate in 5 minutes. Like the process is really, like you said, it's just kind of settling into your own self, the seat of your soul, as they say. Like it's there inside of you. You're not going anywhere.
You don't
You're
have to do
staying
anything.
really attached to your own self. So I love that. I mean, it's such an incredible offering. And we kind of tapped on it a little bit. And I know that you think like, okay, so I know that I'm making a big difference in the world, which of course, making the difference in the world is key. Like to me, that's why we're highlighting people like you. So I want to know, because this is a point in the call when we give you guys the chance as founders to get support from me and the Oracle about what your next steps might be, what's on your heart or on your mind for what you're doing next. So I'm curious, like, what is a big thing you're up to next? And how can you get support from the Oracle today? What would you like to
Yeah.
ask?
Awesome. Thanks. I have so much physical space at Float North, and I would like to add 3 more float tanks, a sauna, and a cold plunge, but it feels out of reach. I've had this vision since the beginning, and I didn't have enough money to do that kind of build out. So I had to limit it. We have 3 tanks, we have 3 treatment rooms, we have sound therapy, massage therapy. I think we may be adding acupuncture soon. But the adding 3 more float tanks, because the quality of the tanks that we have they're the best in the market. They come from the UK. I researched it out the wazoo. The company's been around for like 35 years. They're absolutely phenomenal place to experience it. And I don't want to settle for less.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead. Well, so what is the question you would like to have the answer to? What would make this easier as a decision for you? What's the answer?
As a decision? Well, I guess I'm worried that I won't be able to handle it time-wise, or that the quality will suffer if my attention is stretched to expanding. The original plan had been to add 3 more float tanks in the first 2 to 3 years. And here we are 6.5 years and a pandemic later, and, cost, bandwidth, making sure I have the marketing and membership to support the expansion have all been factors. So that's kind of my next big thing.
So is the question, just so we're clarify for everybody who's following along, is the question, is it time? Is the question, are you ready? Is the question, where's the money? What's the question?
The question may be, where's the money?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because we're pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
So she's, the thing that just popped up as you were talking is that you need to stop doing this alone. So it is time for you to get financial support outside of, you've done a lot of bootstrapping, and she showed me you've done enough. Now it's time to get help to do it. Everything you said was getting what I call the full flush for, yeah, of course. And in fact, you've been on my mind since I knew I was going to be speaking with you, and she kept showing me sound beds. So I think sound beds are definitely an additional to what you're doing is important piece, but definitely none of this will be done by yourself. You are going to need to get help. And it will happen. So it's I think the hurdle that she's showing you to go over is to allow yourself to receive a lot of help. Even when you talked about the original expansion, it pulled you, and some of that fear that you're having around that kind of level of expansion and losing yourself in that, she's pointing directly to like, you've done enough. This is the time when you have to ask for help at a much higher level because you have a lot available to you on the other side of getting that help.
You're giving me goosebumps and I'm having so much emotion come through. Like, go, you nail on the head.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. You have the capacity now to really, enough to make something phenomenal. She wants you to know that. Like just saying like, okay, stop researching, Dana. Go, go, go. It's time. People need what you have to offer. And I know that that's something people are watching and listening going, oh my gosh. So let's tell them, Dana, how do they find out more about this amazing space that you have to offer?
Yeah, you can go to floatnorth.com. We do a really great thing for new people. We do a 3-pack. So you don't have to commit to a membership or anything like that. Try floating at least 3 times, see how you respond. I love when people chat with me. You can email or even book a consultation with me so that I can talk you through what might be the best way for you to approach using our modalities to get the most out of it. Our float facilitators and massage therapists are also fantastic at doing that. So you can talk with anybody who works here to see, like, what do I do the sound therapy first, or do I do the float first, or how does it all work? There's a great FAQ on our website, and we
Perfect.
have memberships. We have a great community of people. We heal in community. And so it really is about helping people feel welcome and making sure that they feel safe and that they feel comfortable and it's clean.
Awesome.
Yeah. Floatnorth.com.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, so the you hear to hear, ladies and gentlemen, this is amazing. I'm so glad I had you. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to know more, please do follow Dana. And also, we will provide all the links you need to get to her location. Make that reservation. You won't regret it. Thank you so much for being here. To all of you who are women founders and entrepreneurs out there, don't be alone in your journey. Come on back. We're here to support you. We're here to help you see that everybody's journey, while different, shares similarities. There's inspiration, there's hope, and, a little insight from O to help along the way. So thanks so much for being here. Again, thank you, Dana. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful you came to share your amazing space with us, and so that we can virtually understand how amazing floating is. And to those of you who are here, please subscribe, punch the button below, or ring the bell. We'd love to have you come back and see us again and again for our next amazing guest. Again, I'm Leah Dunlap. This is Oracle on the Purpose podcast, and we know that you are here on purpose.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.